impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawty Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the Black Brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to episode 334 of Treaty Talk. Tom Clancy here with Matt O'Callaghan, as always, to discuss all the week's actions and ongoings. And Matt, we're heading into a quartet of inter-county games, all four codes, all four senior teams, as it were, out in action, and all four potentially basically in knockout games as well. So it's a great time to be supporting Limerick.
It's a great time to be supporting Limerick and a great time to be involved, Tom. But if you would indulge me for a second, I never get tired of looking and enjoying that introductory piece. And you know what? It should be updated, because, and I'm not saying remove the pieces that are there, but add to it. But the only fear is that if you were add great Limerick moments at the moment, to take up probably the first half hour of the podcast. And certainly what springs to mind immediately is the Kyle Hayes goal in the Munster final in Cork, which, was a very special moment. But there have been so many special moments, like some shots of Cian Lynch, like some of the things that he's done, and Galan, you could go through them all, but that's far away from the question you asked me. Absolutely great, Tom, to be involved in all four codes at this stage of the year. We'll say I normally you wouldn't be this far in June, but for the split season. But it's fantastic and fantastic to look forward to. And we're in with a real good chance in all four. Now people will probably say that he's lost his head now when he's saying that about the Camogie team, but we'll talk about that later, Tom. And the thing is, about the Camogie team, and I won't delve into it any further until we speak Camogie. At the start of the year, and Joe Quaid is on record as saying it, he would have given anything to be in the championship in the last round, and he's in it.
And also have the worry, the real worry of relegation sorted.
Put to bed. Absolutely. So. More about that in on, Tom. We have a very special guest coming on. We have two guests coming on, one for hurling and one for football. So
we're after blowing.
With someone coming on that said, no, a thing or two about Dublin, maybe, That's
right. We have to blow on the budget on our guest, Matt. So maybe we have no time to put in a new intro, but I tell you, there'll be plenty of options. Just to pick up your point there. So anyway, we're going to chat hurling first. We'll be coming to ladies football, men's football, and indeed Camogie, as Matt said, later in the piece. But now we're joined by former Limerick and indeed Dublin hurler Maurice O'Brien. Ahead of this one, Maurice, you were the only man that sprung to mind when we were looking for a guest for this one. You had a foot in one camp, then a foot in the other. You've beaten Limerick, you've lost to Limerick, you've lived in Limerick, you've lived in Dublin. So perfect man to set the scene for us heading into Croke Park.
Thanks, Tom. I knew Matt would be on my case this week. I've been inviting him there for a while. I knew he'd be hard on my case this week. So
I knew you were dodging. I knew you were dodging me, O'Brien.
Maurice, just to put it to you first before we look at this Saturday's game in Croke Park, happy memories, I'm sure, of your time with Dublin. We were discussing it there before we started recording
fantastic
silverware and everything.
Fantastic memories of my days in Dublin. It's glad I'd get 5 years hurling with them, and wouldn't change a bit of it. Great days, fantastic occasions, and got a bit of silverware on the way, and a bit of heartbreak to go with it. So brilliant times. Look, Dublin hurling people are great. They're a small how should we put it? They're a small enough band up there of the true Dublin hurling supporters, but they're brilliant people. Follow the team through thick and thin. Obviously, when they're going well, then that expands massively. But there's a great cohort there of super people involved, and I'd wish them nothing but well all the time. But great memories from up there in my days.
Yeah, and just I suppose the Dublin story, at the time was 2013, winning at Munster, losing to Cork then in the semi-final. Since then, there's been ups and downs. Even this year, in the club scene, Fina winning All Ireland. I suppose, have Dublin maybe underachieved in that intervening 10 or 12 years? Maybe we felt there was another kick in them, but obviously the likes of Limerick, Cork, Kilkenny, even Tipperary and Galway at times have stolen the limelight. Maybe Dublin have been just hanging on to their coattails rather than really making that next step in the last 10 years or so.
No, definitely. I suppose failed to capitalise on the Anthony Daly era, where things were on a high and an upward trajectory was there. And very much have failed to capitalise on that over the last 10 years. You'd hope that they'd probably, now that Fina have won a Club All-Ireland, that might be the catalyst for them to make a resurgence again. Look, I always probably seem to be getting out in third place in Leinster, or getting to a Leinster final and getting out of that Leinster championship, but have failed to progress beyond the quarter-final and probably have failed to perform in a lot of quarter-finals over the last number of years. So, it was definitely, I suppose, never capitalised on what was huge potential in 2013, and I suppose from 2014 onwards has been, it hasn't been great viewing over the years.
Yeah, Matt, I'll let you come in there.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at Dublin. We'll say the Dublin of this year, and what a boost it was, Fina, to win the All Ireland Clubs Championship, and but I would have thought the league, and we tend to dismiss the league, particularly those in Division 1A. But I thought promotion to Division 1A would have been a must for Dublin this year, to mix it with the big teams if they are to make serious progress, and they failed to do it.
No, they did. But I suppose the one thing, they had a bit of a slow start in the fact that Neil O'Callaghan was involved with Fina through that, so he probably didn't have as much contact with the players and implemented what he wanted early doors. So you'd have to say it's a bedding in period for him. I hope he gets time. Dublin probably need a little bit of consistency now, and Neil obviously has done very well in the club scene, and to deliver a Club All Ireland is no mean feat. So you'd hope he gets time, and they have to target that hard next year. Now 1B isn't that easy to get out of either, Matt. There's a couple of good teams down there as well. There's a couple of good teams down there as well, and it's not easy to come out of. But they have to target that if they want to get back to to be the days of being in All Ireland semi-finals and contesting. You have to be in the top division.
Yeah, the point I'm making is that it's very, very important for the progression of a developing team, which Dublin are at the moment, to be playing as many top level teams as they possibly can.
Yeah.
Failing to get promoted now, irrespective of how they do on Sunday, and irrespective of where their championship run ends, they're going to have to go back down next year again and start at a lower level.
I know, I agree with you. If you want to compete, you have to be playing the top teams throughout the league, because look, the Leinster Championship isn't as strong. You have Kilkenny obviously always get to a Leinster final, and Kilkenny would no doubt compete and come out of Munster as well. I have no doubt. But outside of that, I don't think any of the rest of them would compete and come out of Munster. So they have to get up into Division 1 and compete there in the league, 100%.
Yeah, Maurice, I suppose looking at the current state of play, I think if you looked at it, Dublin have won the games that everyone would have thought they won potentially. I know that Wexford one is maybe the one that they stepped up and maybe a couple of things went their way, including that ghost goal almost. But they've won the games maybe that they were supposed to win, the likes of Antrim and Offaly as well. But they haven't delivered then against Kilkenny. I think they were 14, 15 points down at one stage, brought it back. Then they played Galway as well and didn't get over the line there. Then they bounced back obviously last weekend with, I think I heard the phrase, a bit of a tune up against Kildare, and look, they were heavy favourites for that. So it's about time maybe Dublin put in a big performance in a big game. Limerick are obviously the team in their way, but as you said there before, they haven't always delivered in these quarterfinals. They're going to need, that's the next step for them, is to really put it up to one of the big teams in a knockout game as well.
I know it is, and look, from a Dublin point of view, it's a terrible fixture for them to get, to draw Limerick in an All-Ireland quarter-final. You know, that's not a very appetising from their point of view, to be looking at multiple All-Ireland champions now with a point to prove coming at them. Dublin have left the bigger teams, let's call it Kilkenny and Galway, to a lesser extent. They've given them handsome leads and probably fighting and chasing to draw it back at that stage when the game is essentially over, scoring heavily to bring themselves back into games, but too late. Like, if you give Limerick a 10, 12 point head start, like, the game is over. There's no comeback from it. So, like, if they allow that to happen again this weekend, it's curtains early doors, without a doubt. You know, they have to make a contest of this for the full 70 minutes.
Yeah, we've hardly mentioned Limerick, Maurice, but from Limerick's point of view, yeah, maybe a small point to prove. It's funny though, they didn't actually get beaten by Cork on the, you know, in the 90 odd minutes of hurling. They were thereabouts the whole way through. They were ahead basically up to the last puck of the game. Not an awful lot needs to be changed by Limerick, but I suppose it's some of those errors that led to scores from Cork the last day, some of those poor handling, you know, some of that poor shooting. That's probably where the obvious improvement is for John Kiley and co heading into Croke Park.
It's just, Tom, it felt like a defeat heading out the Ennis Road afterwards anyway.
Well, it was, but you know what I mean, that they hadn't actually, you know, it's not like Cork came down and won by 10 points and
no.
Of course, the Big Mackie Cup is gone down to
Look, things aren't a million miles away. Look, we knew the highs of 3 weeks previously against Cork wasn't real either, you know. So look, brilliant day as it was and brilliant performance. Cork were flat. So I suppose, look, Cork came ready, worked their socks off, to be fair to them. They were brilliant on the day. Things went their way. Limerick's shooting was wayward. You know, execution was poor. Like, and you'd have to say, was the shot selection right in a lot of occasions? It was. It was just execution left us down on the day, and that happens on a given day. That happens, and when you see it like coming down the straight there, an extra time, wide after wide, from Kyle Hayes stepping up a wide, Peter Casey in front of the goals a wide, Darragh Donovan, like, it just, Will O'Donoghue, all chances you'd say you have to take the shot on. The option was correct, but execution just wasn't there. And there's days like that, you know, and do you excuse it, or you don't excuse it, but you go back and work on it again. And look, these boys have been to the well so many times. The fear I would have with it is, and look, and it's not a fear for this weekend, is we've been down the straight with Cork now 3 times in the last year. We've obviously demolished them in the round robin, but we've been going down the straight with them 3 times, twice last year and once this year, and Cork have come out on top in all 3 of them. So that's a worry for me in itself, that obviously if we do happen to meet them again and we're going down the straight, you'd have to say Cork are in with a right chance, and that's probably where it's going to be facing when we face them again. So, like, that's the disappointing part, that they were there for the taking 3 times, but Cork came out on top all 3.
Yeah. Maurice, you referenced there the shot efficiency and maybe the decision making, but I thought Limerick across the field were a notch down on certainly the performance against Cork the first day, but a notch down on the level we know they can reach. It wasn't just something that was peculiar to the forwards. I think it was something that was kind of a bit of a malaise that was all over the field. Now, you know, you have to give full credit to Cork's work rate and the way Cork set themselves out. But I think Limerick were a notch as a team below their best.
I know, you'd have to say that, Matt. I wouldn't disagree with you there. You'd have to say that they definitely weren't at the level, their optimum level, or nowhere near it. But you'd have to, I suppose, give a lot of credit to Cork there. You know, Cork were at it. They were up for the fight. Like, you must remember the humiliation they faced heading down the road 3 weeks previous. And I suppose the castigating they got from their own fans, they had to come and turn up and fight, right? And they did. And we were just that, right? I wouldn't say we were massively off, Matt. We were off. When you're off a little bit and a team comes at you like that, that's the consequences of it, you know? Like, I would say we don't have to go in and have to do a whole lot of reflection, I think, you know? I just think we were slightly off and they were fully on. And that's a 10-point swing when you're just like that at the very top level.
Yeah, they talk about fine margins, and like fine margins come into performances rather than, you miss a point or you get a point, and that sort of thing. Can you see many changes on the Limerick team for the quarterfinal? Now, I know that John Kiley has a new headache in the performance of Aidan O'Connor in the first half, and then having to spring Shane O'Brien in the second half, and both they got two goals and 3 points between them. But other than that, that's going to be a big call. Can you see any further changes around the pitch?
It's hard to say. Like I don't see it, but like I find it hard to believe Cathal O'Neill can't break onto this team. He was outstanding last year. It didn't flow for him when he came on the other day, but like it didn't flow for a lot of fellas. I just think he's too good of a player to be coming in that impact role for 20 minutes. I just think he's that good. He has to be accommodated somewhere. And does his versatility come against him at times that he can cover from? Look, obviously he was trialled in the half-back line last year, very successfully in my book. I was assuming that was for a reason, and Kyle Hayes to go in centre back and him to take over there, but Barry Nash is out there now. But like it's he's too good not to be in the starting 15 would be my belief on him. Look, obviously Aidan O'Connor did well, right? Got the scores, got an awful lot of ball as well. You'd love to see that ball bounce into Glen's hand, but unfortunately it didn't. And obviously Shane O'Brien came in and played quite well, and they're obviously impacting the scoreboard. Peter Casey's another man probably that we need, in order for us to be successful and to be humming, we need him humming as well, and he's just that little bit off also. Mm-hmm. So I don't see wholesale changes. I'd say, look, it's a toss-up. Shane O'Brien, Aidan O'Connor is a toss-up, like we didn't see the Aidan O'Connor one coming. Obviously, form and training was there for that to happen. And I don't see any other changes. I'd like to see Cathal O'Neill start, but I just don't see it.
I agree totally with you about Cathal O'Neill. I honestly think that Cathal O'Neill, a man of his quality, has to be accommodated. But I agree totally with you what you say, that his versatility may be coming against him a bit. In that he can nail down a particular spot. Like if there's a spot to be, to be beefed up, Cathal O'Neill is sent in there. So. I agree totally, but I think it will be basically the same team with the big call between Shane O'Brien and Aidan O'Connor. Now, what about Darragh O'Donovan? I
think the midfield, like Adam English is going to stay there, right? So it's Will O'Donoghue. Darragh O'Donovan is the discussion now for me. I would look. Darragh O'Donovan, I'd have said to you all along, was the linchpin and one of the main reasons we weren't All-Ireland champions last year. But we probably need a little bit more from him. We need Darragh O'Donovan of 2 years ago. And I suppose in order to get to that position, you need to be playing regularly. And he's just in that position now where he's coming in. It's hard to be that impact player when you're that link man, right? Which I'd call him, just all the triangles all reverberate around him. And it's hard to impact the game hard when that's you. That's a 70-minute man job, So, and Will O'Donoghue fulfills such a role for the club, for the team or the county team, that it's hard to shake Will O'Donoghue off the team. So I think Darragh is going to be limited to where he is for now. I don't see a change in midfield, albeit I was screaming for it last year. When is he going to be fit? When is he going to be fit? I think it's Adam English has stepped up, to be fair to him.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well, but the Darragh O'Donovan of 2 years ago, if he could recapture that type of form, what a boost he would be, but he still, if he's going to be on the bench, he's still capable of making a huge impact.
I know, definitely. You'd love him in there. Like, I suppose he's super, like he's reading of the game, his distribution. I would say he's probably one of the vital cogs missing from a communication point of view on the field as well. I just, you kind of see there when there's a message to go in, Darragh O'Donovan is going to the sideline, taking the message and distributing it. So I think that's a loss for the team as well. So he fulfills roles that this is just a hard one. Like we're an embarrassment of riches to try and get all those components on the field, and the mix probably isn't quite working at the moment, but it's hard to shuffle it up and find what's right. Like, to me, I'd have said he fits in there for Adam English fits in there on the number 15 role coming out, but David Reedy is one of our outstanding performers at the moment. He's playing brilliant, so that's not going to work. David Reedy's nailed on for me. So that's kind of what I predicted earlier in the year, but he's a nailed on starter for me now every day.
Yeah, well, David Reedy broke into the team, I think it's nearly 3 seasons ago, 2023, I think, or even 2022, and he's more or less been irreplaceable since. I know he doesn't always play the 70, but that's the role, of course. That's the role, is to expend your energy, get involved. Even the last day, I remember I watched back the game after, and sometimes when you're in the knowledge of the result, you can watch it with a different bit of an eye, and I tell you, he was absolutely everywhere in that first maybe 45, 50
energy
minutes.
levels are off the charts.
Yeah, and it's like you're right, you're 100% right, Maurice. He's a very important cog in that team. I wonder though, does Adam English maybe, if they are to rejig it, does he end up maybe in the half-forward line and he's even a freer role then? When he's at midfield, there's probably an expectation that he's to dovetail a little bit more with the lads, but is there potential there? But then there is such loyalty, and it's justified in our 10 and 12 in the form of Grod Hegarty and Tom Murphy. They have done so much over the last 6 or 7 seasons that it's very hard to kind of dislodge them. It's certainly from my point of view anyway.
But Tom, they're doing nothing to be dislodged.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
They're not giving John Kiley a reason to dislodge him. I think anyway.
No, I think, like, especially there, like both of them, right? The performance levels are definitely upped from last year with both. I feel. I think Tom Morrissey's performances have been very, very good this year. Like, you hear the crowd there when he hits his first obligatory wide every game. Like, it's Tom will hit a wide first. Apart from that Cork game, that was a telltale there that we were about to blow him away. But like, once the radar kicks in, he always comes off the pitch with 4 points. So and an incredible amount of work rate. And I suppose what I've noticed now is, a new element to the game is when play is developing down in our defensive side, Tom is finding a pocket of space up in the forward somewhere and
hanging out the back door.
Seems to be a ply to find that yellow helmet, and he's always free in behind the half-back line. So he's picking off scores that no one else is able to get. Yeah. So he's a vital role.
Yeah, do you see, I think everyone in Limerick is expecting a victory. I think it would be a huge shock to lose, and let's not go mad jumping ahead saying Limerick will win by a cricket score or anything like that, but Limerick are firm favourites for a reason. They've earned that right. But is there anything in that Dublin team? I know I'm looking at their team that played against Kildare, like Big John Heatherton is one that has jumped out. Dermot O'Dooling the last day, is there something that say that Dublin might, maybe go route one and might try and cause Limerick problems? But I say that then, of course, with the caveat that the Limerick full back line in the last 2 games against Cork have really, as much as you can in whatever it is, nearly 3 hours of hurling, they have been absolutely immense. The Limerick full back line has been the most consistent line for me so far this season. But is there anything you see that Dublin could really worry Limerick over the 70 minutes?
Look, I do think it's not going to be a runaway victory. I do see it being a competitive game. I do see us coming away with a I suppose what's the spread is 8 points. Like, I do see it finishing up somewhere around there. I see Dublin, I suppose, bringing a performance. I speak the fact that it's in Croke Park rather than Thurles. Thurles has been a graveyard for Dublin teams over 15 years. They've never performed down there. I think Croke Park is a boost to them. As you're on about John Heatherton, Hedjo was 17 years of age and he was taking part in our trainings. His father was a selector with us back then.
How big was he at 17?
He was a big boy back then as well. He was landed in anytime there was a shortage of training. A shortage for a 15-a-side match. This 17-year-old was landed in, and he was a big boy back then, well able to handle himself. So he's still at it. But look, I do like. You must remember they're down Donald Burke as well. Their key talisman in the forwards is missing for them. I do think they have a good running game about them. John Heatherton creates chaos in the air, but like it's nothing Dan Morrissey hasn't seen with Brian Hayes over the last couple of weeks as well. So I find it hard to give a compelling place where Dublin put in a performance here where they're coming down the straight and they're in the game. But I do think it'll be sticky for 50 minutes. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think we saw that with Cork last year, didn't we? In the quarterfinal, they played in Thurles. Cork just couldn't shake them off, and Cork, as we know, we're going on to greater things. Like, so, yeah, Dublin will certainly be an obstacle for Limerick. There's no doubt about it. Matt, you're going to come in there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be sticky for the 70 minutes. I think Dublin, like they've won the last 2 times against Limerick, and I remember we going down to Kilkenny. What year was it for a league semi-final?
2019, yeah. Was it a semi or quarterfinal? Semi-final, I think it was, yeah.
Semi-final, and they pushed us all the way in Nolan Park right to the very end, and they weren't expected to do so. So I would have the utmost respect for Dublin, but the fact that they're in Croke Park, I'm not so sure that it confers much of an advantage to Morris, because I would say that this Limerick team has played more often in Croke Park than the Dublin team has played, because they tend to have Parnell Park as their home venue.
I know it is, definitely, but you ask anyone, I know there was that debate going on the time of we were playing league matches inside in Croke Park. Everybody wants to play there, I suppose at our time we always wanted to play all our league matches in Croke Park every opportunity you get. I don't see this Dublin team being any different. They'll want to be in Croke Park as well. Are Limerick more familiar? They are, yeah, but Dublin are at home. They have the footballers coming in behind them.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting, like if
the
football crowd arrives in early for the game, right, and does get behind them from the start. That'll be an interesting telltale as to how things are up there. Will they have the support of the bigger crowd, shall we say, that will come in inevitably? And if they do happen to be in the game, Matt, coming down the straight, you'll have Hill 16 kicking into action then. So, but look, again, I just find it difficult. Like I find it difficult to have a compelling argument like this. This Limerick team is seasoned, right? Very seasoned. They don't do shocks. They don't do shock defeats, right? Like, albeit, how many defeats have we had? They've been Kilkenny in 19 and Cork last year, and Cork in the Munster final there recently. Call it a defeat on penalties. There's no shock. Like, Kilkenny in an All-Ireland semi-final are a serious beast when you come across them. And look, that Cork team in last year, obviously, are a coming team. Matt, they're there. They're I don't know who the favourites for the All Ireland are now after the Munster final, but Cork are bang there with us, and are coming, So, like, I just don't see Dublin being at that pitch where they can trouble this experience of a Limerick team going down the straight. I just don't see them being there.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Maurice, before we let you go now, I know we're conscious of time. We were to talk football as well. You're seeing it so as a Limerick victory. Some bit comfortable in the end, maybe on the scoreboard, but Dublin to cause a few problems. If you were to pick out a player, maybe that we'd hope you might see going well for Limerick the weekend that might thrive in Croke Park. I know that's probably hard to pick when they've all done it. But like, who should we maybe? Who would you might give a tip to on that?
What I'd love to see, Tom. I'd love to see more ball going into Glen.
Absolutely. I said it on last week's show. Yeah. He was outstanding against Cork last day.
He's in unbelievable form. He's a menace. There's no defender in the country who want to be near him, whatever way you put it into him. I think we're trying to be too perfect for nobody has a player like him to win dirty ball inside. We're trying to be a little bit too perfect. I'd love to see Glen being hit with more ball and earlier and see what comes of it, because I think he's ready to explode into action.
Very good. They say vote early, vote often. Well, you want to hit Gillane early and often, and it's simple as that. And look, I agree. I thought he was outstanding. He played every minute of that Munster final, and I tell you, he's a Cork full back line in awful trouble. And you're probably right. He just didn't get the quantity needed to put those scores on the board. I think he only got 2 from play, and sometimes you can look at a Coley and say, sure, he only scored a couple of points from play, but set up the Shane O'Brien goal, set up other chances, one freeze, etc. I think you're right there on that one, and hopefully John Kiley is listening to you, and they'll love it in the top of it. But
there's loads of times he hasn't been listening to me, and he was dead right.
That's true. In John we trust, as they say. Morris, we'll let you.
Morris, before you go, where are you on the debate of Limerick having to travel up on Saturday for the hurling and Sunday for the football? Now, I'd make my position clear. My understanding is that Limerick didn't object to going to Croke Park, and I have no problem with them going to Croke Park. Where I have the issue is that GA headquarters appear to have themselves wedded to having the 2 Tailteann Cup semi-finals on Sunday. And I would have thought that in the circumstances and the way that things panned out, that they should have brought forward the Limerick football semi-final and have a double header. I think it's very, very, very unfair on Limerick fans. You're going to have Limerick fans that will travel up both Saturday and Sunday. You'll have Limerick fans that will try to get accommodation, which is very difficult, I understand, with concerts, and all the prices have been hiked up. I think it's totally, totally unfair, and those responsible should have a look at themselves.
Well, Matthew, I don't think you've ever seen the GAA about Limerick anyway, looking for a fixture change or a move or something of that ilk when a decision is made. But look, I agree with you. I think it's very hard.
Element of it, Maurice, you see, it's the common sense element of it.
Yeah, but that's what's lacking, Matt. There is none.
The Dub can have his lunch, go out and have the 2 matches and have a late tea, whilst the Limerick guy has to be, up and down both days,
No, I fully agree with you, Matt. It would be brilliant if they brought it forward and had a triple header, right? I think it's the obvious thing to happen, but very often with GAA hierarchy, the obvious and best thing is not often done, and it's disappointing that is the case, right? And it's going to affect the football support. I think what the footballers have done this year has been amazing, right?
Absolutely.
I think the Tailteann Cup is an unbelievable success. It gives an opportunity for the likes of Limerick to have tangible silverware there in front of them. It's a fantastic thing, and it's going to affect their support. Wouldn't it be unbelievable if you had that effect where you had the double header? It'd be unbelievable. No, I fully agree with you, Matt. It's going to hurt us, yeah, definitely. But a lot.
It's historic. The football game in that Limerick are back in Croke Park for the second time this year. In the concluding stages of a national competition. We were there for Division 4 of the league in which we won it. Here we're now in the semi-final of the Tailteann Cup. Like, it has never happened in Limerick before.
No, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And Matt, for a county our size and population, we should be competing in all fronts, and it's brilliant to see that we are now this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Maurice, thanks for your time. We'll let you on. And
speaking on that, lads, I have a under 12 football match to race after.
bigger than any Tailteann Cup semi-final or indeed any hurling quarterfinal. Chat to you soon, Maurice.
Thanks very much, Maurice.
Yeah, very good to have Maurice there. Matt, we'll move straight to football, I think, now. I will say one thing before I bring Declan Brouder in. One benefit of the footballers staying on Sunday, and it's the same for Wicklow in fairness, is that the players, after a hard exertion against Wexford, do get that extra day rest. So hopefully that will mean in terms of the result. I understand the supporters' point of view.
No, Tom. There are so many stakeholders in the GAA now. You have the executive, you have the players, you have the managements, and you have the supporters. And the supporters are really, they come last in the pecking order. And I think there's been a grave. I'm not objecting, and I make it quite clear to Limerick playing Dublin and Croke Park, but there is a grave disservice done to Limerick this weekend. And what I say is shame on those responsible.
Okay,
and I leave it at that.
Fair enough. We'll bring in our next guest to talk football, Declan Brouder. Declan, you'll be heading to Croke Park Sunday, I take it, will you?
How are you, Declan?
I will. How are you, Matt? How are you, Tom?
Good. Great to have you.
Good to have you.
Thanks, lads, and great to be on again. The sun is shining and we're heading to Croke Park at the weekend, so we're all happy.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
All happy. Tremendous. A good news story, Declan.
For sure, Matt. I think from a football perspective, a spring in the step this week. I think spoken to a few different people, and that's kind of the vibe that everybody seems to be on the same page. There's just a bit of a spring in the step of everybody that has a real interest in the fortunes of the footballers in Limerick, and I'm sure we'll get into it in great detail. But really looking at a team the last couple of weeks who are playing a beautiful attacking style of football, and without trying to put any pressure on them, the sky's the limit. Coming into this weekend, because the way they're playing, the scores they're cracking up, it's very exciting from a football perspective.
Yeah, and hopefully, Declan, the fact I know we're talking there, people, not everyone will travel. Look, let's be real about it. But the fact that this now is on national television, the wider Limerick public who maybe might be more small ball inclined or mightn't give the footballers much of their time. They might tune in now and they might see, like the likes of Danny Neville tearing defences apart like we saw last weekend. Peter Nash joining him inside. Emmett Richter, I mean, like myself and Matt are sick of talking about him, how good he is. And further back the field, then there's James Knock. Like, there is so much to be excited about with this team. As you say, we're not trying to pile pressure on them, but like the new rules, this new system Limerick are playing, and this new personnel, the kind of new combinations. I mean, how could you not be excited if you were leaning towards Limerick in football? It's brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I know I was on earlier in the year, and I think Limerick had just got a win in London at the time. And if you were to kind of, go back to that time where it was a draw first day out, a loss to Wexford, and like a win in London, which was big at the time, very big, and we talked about maybe there being a real chance of promotion once they had got that win. If you were to just go through it really quickly, the gaining of promotion first off, then winning the league title in Croke Park. We've often got to finals, but not always have we been able to finish the job. So it was brilliant to see that we actually got to climb the steps in Croke Park and lift the title. And then we went in and played Cork in the Munster Championship. I think at the time of the sending off, the teams were level. And I was sitting there that night, and I was really impressed with how Limerick went about their business in the first 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And in a 10-minute spell after the sending off and up to half time, the game kind of ended. There was a couple of 2-pointers scored. It went from being level on 25 minutes to, the game, maybe Limerick being about 10 points down at half time. And I think, even though those leads are, in the new game, you can claw them back to a certain extent, but it just felt at halftime that night that the wind was going out of Limerick sails with the sending off. But to roll on quickly to the Tailteann Cup, like the win up in Corrigan Park in Antrim was a real, not too many teams go to Corrigan Park and get a win. So that was a huge moment for this team. And then to back it up with a win against Westmeath, to go to top the group, to go straight into a quarterfinal, to go in and play Wexford, who, we were all confident against Wexford last week, but we were equally worried that we played them twice and there wasn't going to be much in it. And I honestly think, looking at that game last week, an 8-point win for a finish, it could have even been more. So I think more than anything, as you alluded to, Tom, the style of football, the form that some of those guys that you mentioned are in at the minute, it's just very exciting for the footballers, and please God, the curve can continue to trend upwards this weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned the game at the weekend. Limerick ended with 4-21. They were level at halftime. Now there was a very strong breeze. If people didn't see it, it was a bit like the breeze in the Munster Hurling final, straight down to the city end. Limerick went 5 down at the start, then they went 6 up, then they were real back into level at halftime. But for some reason, and maybe it's because of how they played in that first half, I just didn't feel worried that Wexford would do much damage in the second half. Now I know Wexford got a goal early in the second half, but you always felt Limerick, they knew what they were doing. They have a level of cohesion in their play, and that they would get the scores. And in a game where Wexford kicked 6 2-pointers, it literally didn't matter at the end. Limerick were not happy. Maybe Jimmy alluded to it after, defending the arc, as he called it. They left a couple of easy 2-pointers, but when they got things sorted out in the second half and late in that first half, maybe there was just an air of confidence and belief, I think, around the place that they would get the job done, and they did emphatically, as you said.
Yeah, I was slightly worried after 5 minutes when we were down 5-0.
I was definitely worried then, all right.
I was wondering, when we were going to get going. But I kind of agree with you. At halftime, we were level. I think we were level at halftime.
Yeah,
we were after playing against the breeze, and I mean, in the space of 5 or 10 minutes, the game was, it was. I'm not going to say it was over, but it was very clear that there was only going to be one winner. And yes, Wexford kind of came back into it again, as teams do. They'll have a spell, and as you mentioned, these 2-pointers can pull teams back in at any stage. But yeah, I said it already. I think, and again, I'm really conscious. I'm not trying to put pressure on the lads, but an 8-point winning margin, it could have been more. The way that second half panned out. So yeah, if you had said to me before going in we'd win by 8 points, I wouldn't have been putting any money on it anyway. But I just think it's a real sign of where the team are at where the group is at. You know, I was in around the pitch after and just meeting a few lads, congratulating them, and you can sense, you can tell by them that they're in a good place. You know, that the squad and the management are together on this, and they're very much going in the right direction. Like,
yeah. Declan, you know, in 2023 and 2024, we couldn't buy a win in the league, and we went 17 games without a win. But we were winning football matches in the Tailteann Cup. We were reaching quarterfinal 23, 24. You know, hard to explain. I think was it the level of opposition we were meeting, perhaps, maybe, but certainly the Tailteann Cup has been good to Limerick.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, it's been a roller coaster of a couple of years for Limerick. If you go back to, was it 22? I'm not 100% sure in my years, but you know, we were in a Munster final a few years ago, and we had gone all the way up as far as Division 2. And you know, before we knew it, we found ourselves back down in Division 4. And as you said, like, if you were to look at the league games on their own, there was a kind of a run of not winning. But in between, we had won 3 games last year in the Tailteann, where you know, I suppose the team had gained a level of confidence. And to your point, Matt, that's what the Tailteann Cup is great for in that sense. So look, I'm guessing it was probably, you know, it was a long winter for Jimmy and his backroom team. But I'm sure there was massive learnings in their first year involved. And look, they came back. They had a bit of a shaky start, as we alluded to. But once they got that win in London, I heard Jimmy say recently in an interview that he felt that game in Wicklow was the turning point for the year. I would say, you know, from my viewpoint, which is not as close as his, but I think that win in London was just huge for the group. It probably just got a bit of a monkey off the back at the time, and they just seem to have kind of grown wings gradually from here. And what we're seeing currently is you know, is a very, very good product from a Limerick football perspective.
Maybe at the outset, Declan, Limerick was slightly slow to adapt maybe to the new rules, particularly picking off the 2-pointers. But it looks to me now that Jimmy Lee and his backroom team have devised a system and a strategy of playing to maximise the new rules.
Yeah, I think I was only talking actually about James Naughton this week. He's on the tip of everybody's, you know, tongue from a football perspective. Like, I think if you take James in particular, like, he's one of these guys that has just, I mean, almost exploded in the new game that has kind of, you know, kicked in since the 1st of January. Like, there are certain players throughout the country that have just got a lease of life with the new rules. And James, you throw in Danny Neville, you throw in Emmet Richter, who's a really good up-and-coming player. And then in more general terms, Matt, like you said, Limerick's style of play, they've just found a style that suits them. Like, I was in there, as I said, on Sunday. It was very evident to me what they were doing. We won't go into it in great detail here, you know, ahead of Sunday. But as you said, it was the style that suited the personnel that they had on the pitch. It suited the pitch that was the Gaelic Grounds, which is a big open pitch. And I would be very confident that, you know, having been to Croke Park already this year, that it's a style that will suit Limerick again this weekend.
I would agree totally. I would agree totally with you with that. But Wicklow are going to, you know, it's massive for Wicklow, possibly bigger for Wicklow maybe than Limerick, because Wicklow are one of 2 counties in the entire country that haven't won a Leinster a provincial championship. And so to be within 60, 70 minutes of a first ever national final is huge for them.
I think it's huge for both teams, Matt, but I what you're saying is not lost on me. And I would, like, you know, I've no doubt that Jimmy and his management team will be airing that kind of, you know, I suppose, opinion on the players this week without going overboard. But like, there was a small bit of a narrative going around the Gaelic Grounds on Sunday that, you know, hopefully we'll get Wicklow in the draw on Monday morning, and I'd be nervous about that. And look, I'm
careful what you wish for, yeah.
Well, like, Wicklow are a good side, and there's nothing between Limerick and Wicklow the last couple of years. You know, we got a point down there. this year in Auckland. Some would say controversial circumstances. Like, I think we were beaten down there last year. You know,
it was only a point last year, and I think the meeting before that was only a point or two as well, like in Division 3, I think it was at the time.
And they beat us in the Tailteann Cup 2 years ago when they had nothing to play for. They were out, and we were
qualified. Yeah, I remember that. Look, there's nothing between either. There's nothing between Limerick and Wicklow. Wicklow, to your point, Matt, they're getting ready for a semi-final that if they win, they get into a national final this weekend. I'm not nervous of Wicklow, but I'd be very quick to dismiss this idea that, Limerick wanted Wicklow in the draw because it was the easier side of the draw. Funnily enough, I think, Kildare or Fermanagh, the pressure is on those teams to perform. You look at Westmeath at the start of this competition, Kildare and Westmeath were the two teams that were tipped to win it. Westmeath are no longer in the competition. Now the pressure, it moves further on Kildare and maybe Fermanagh to a lesser extent. So I think Limerick and Wicklow, look, they both have a free shot at getting to a national title. But in my opinion, there is absolutely nothing between these two teams as they go into this game on Sunday. And you only have to look at the form lines, including both teams beating Westmeath late wins over Westmeath. Yeah,
exactly. We could be looking at a total different narrative, were it not for London sensationally beating Wicklow in the league.
Absolutely, London beating Wicklow and Limerick beating London, shifted the dial over towards Limerick. And as you both know, we only needed a draw in Auckland that day. That was enough for us as long as we looked after the rest of our results. So completely, I think Wicklow lost to Wexford as well. So that, by tripping up in London, that's what kind of swung the tide back in Limerick's favour. And look, credit to Limerick, you still have to go to Auckland and get any type of a result. That's not an easy thing to do, but they got the draw at the time. It was important. It was probably what got them promoted. And look, there's no looking back now, the way things are going. It's just onwards and upwards all the time.
Yeah, Declan, the Wicklow should have huge confidence and belief. Now, last weekend they were 8 points down, I think, with 50 odd minutes on the clock. And I don't know, did you see the last matches to play? Like, it was just chaos. Like, it shows the value of the hooter. And I heard Oisin McConville on a podcast on Monday alluding to the fact that the hooter was new on them. I think it was new on Limerick as well. It's another dynamic you have to manage. We saw Mayo didn't manage it as well on Sunday, but for them to come from 8 down, I think they got a penalty to level it, fell behind again. Like, they really went to the depths last Sunday to win, and look, that kind of fortifies the team and kind of instills a genuine belief that they're doing the right thing. Especially, as you said, Westmeath were firm favourites for the competition before a ball was kicked.
Oh, look, 100%. I heard that podcast. Oisin was saying that I think they were using the horn and the kid fan as the hooter as they were. So and as you said, it was Limerick's first time with the hooter as well on Sunday. But look, there'll be no fear that the hooter will be working in Croke Park on Sunday. Look, I said it already. I think Wicklow are going to be a big challenge. Wicklow played Dublin this year in the Leinster Championship, and they lost by 9 points for a finish. They put up a remarkable performance. They beat Westmeath this year, as we talked about. They beat Westmeath last year, and I think they went very, very close to beating Kildare last year as well, either in the Leinster Championship or the Tailteann Cup. I can't remember exactly which one, but they have big moments in them. They love a challenge and they love being an underdog. And there's not much of an underdog feel to this game for either team, but Westmeath are they can be quite the underdog when they're in the mood for it. And look, as I said, I don't think Limerick are going to be taking them for granted. Maybe from an armchair analysis, the supporter might think, Limerick are better than Wexford. But I think anybody in the know will realise that there's going to be very little between these teams going into Sunday, at least anyway.
Yeah, just that the Limerick style of play, Declan, and I was on the pitch. Yes, I didn't bump into you now. There was a couple of thousand there, and a lot of them went onto the pitch. It's great to see. The physical condition these Limerick players are in is frightening. I'm 5'10", and I felt very, very small beside a lot of them. A lot of them are 6 foot plus. They're really, really good athletes. they're really, really good athletes too, Declan. And I think that's another reason why this Limerick team, you know, the guys that have stayed there for 7 or 8 seasons now, you can see the condition they're in, and I suppose that's fueling their performance then, because they're certainly able to go for the 60, 70 minutes to really deliver that type of game Limerick want to deliver.
Yeah, there's a lovely feel to the squad at the minute. Like if you quickly, you know, you've got a few of the dare I say elder statesmen, the lads that have been around for a few years. The likes
experienced is the word.
Experience, good way of putting it. But you know, you've got Ian, you've got the likes of Killian Fahy, who's the captain this year, Danny Neville, Peter Nash, James Naughton. I would say all of those guys are probably in the Limerick setup 10 plus years now at this stage. So you know, they're the guys that are showing the real experience. I would say both on and off the field. And then you have the middle generation, the likes of Killian Ryan, maybe Josh Ryan. He's a small bit younger. Tony McCarthy, guys like that. And then you've a couple of young lads coming through. Mark McCarthy is one that stands out. Emmett Richter, another one. A beautiful blend of.
What about Davin Doc?
Darren, yeah, one of our own lads here in Newcastle, a great lad.
Fantastic. Yeah.
You do well to get to the end of Darren, I can tell you that. So I think that balance across the squad, and equally coming off the bench, when you can bring like Tygo Shukru came in very early last week, because obviously Tony McCarthy picked up a knock early days, but when you see the likes of Rob Childs coming in, Rob Childs, another very good footballer, has a lot of it played at this stage. You know, when you can bring guys like that off the bench, bearing in mind we have 4 or 5 pretty significant injuries at the minute, that if you could add them, you know, I'm pretty sure not all of them will be back this weekend, but I think 1 or 2 are pushing hard. But like if you could add 4 or 5 to that existing squad, God, you're in a really good place. So I suppose that's the first point, is that the squad has a lovely balance to it, and then you can kind of see that in the style of play. You can see, you know, like defenders getting forward to join the attack. We're very much holding our own in the middle with the sheer size of Darrow Hagan and Tommy Childs, and then just this real fluid style of play when we get the ball forward. Like James Naughton, when he gets the ball in hand, you know, it's almost at a stage where you're thinking this is nearly guaranteed to score. The form demand is in at the minute, like so. And if you can have the supporting cast in Peter, in Killian, in Emmett and Danny, all these guys, then that's a real, you know, it's a real good place for the team and the management to be looking on.
Yeah, 10 different scorers last Sunday, including Josh Ryan just sauntering up to kick a 2-pointer right at the end. But I think it's very much of a well balanced squad. There's no over reliance on, you know, I think from the if you were not looking at this Limerick team, you would say James Naughton is the man that keeps coming up, but that's because he's scoring the most. But he isn't this focal point of the team. There is probably no focal point in and I mean that in the best possible way. You know, every day someone else is stepping up. And just to mention James Naughton, the other day I was set to check my notes and I was doing a report. I said, geez, you have to get 9 points. You know, as good and all as he was, it didn't feel like he got 9 points. It's just we're kind of nearly expecting it at this stage. You know, I know he kicked 4-12 against Water in that league game, so he set the bar very high for himself. But like for someone to just kind of casually chip in with 9 points, it tells you the way things are going in the camp. You know, for Limerick to get back to Croke Park, Declan, I think championship wise, I think was it 2011 the last time they played there. Again, a very forgettable afternoon against Kerry. It was the draw that they didn't want, of course, as well that day. But great for the lads that are soldiering for so long. I think most of the older lads, your experienced lads you mentioned there, kind of came into the panel just after that. It's great reward to get a championship afternoon out in Croke Park, and obviously we'll be hoping that a lot of people will do their best to stay around Dublin after the hurling, and people will make the way up on today. It's great reward for these players, and the Tailteann Cup is a great competition, and I think we can agree on that. It has given new lease of life to these counties.
100%. And look, there's 2 Division 4 teams in one semi-final this weekend in Limerick and Wexford, so we're guaranteed a Division 4 team in the Tailteann Cup final. We know Limerick are going to Division 3 next year, but as of now, you know, I think the organisers of this competition will be delighted with that. It shows that you know, this competition is for everybody that's in it. And then like to be going to Croke Park from a Limerick football perspective, we don't get there that often. So it's a novelty, really, I suppose, Tom, in the sense that when we only get there, I'm going to say 3 or 4 times in the last 10 years, every time it comes round, there's a bit of a novelty feel to it. But I think that's the beauty of this year's success story. It's not really a novelty now this weekend. We were up there in April, I think it was, and we won a national title up there. So like it's romantic, or it's a bit of a novelty maybe from a supporter's perspective. But if you're to be part of the setup this weekend, it's very much go time from a Limerick football perspective. They're not going for the novelty side of things. They're going with a clear mindset of what they need to do. Thankfully, they've travelled that road already this year, and I think that I'd be very hopeful that will stand to Limerick. That that trip and that performance and everything that went with it back in April will stand to Limerick this week, and when they get on the bus or the train or whatever they're doing on Sunday morning, that it'll feel like that it's a road they've travelled. So yeah, novelty and maybe a bit romantic from a supporter's point of view, but very much from inside the squad, it's let's take care of business, and we know this road already.
Absolutely, yeah. Matt, you want to come in there?
Declan, I was at the Wexford game now the day in McNeville Park, and it was very, very thinly disguised that day, the level of camaraderie that was between the squad, the players, the extended panel, because I spoke with a cross section of them. Is Jimmy Lee getting the full credit for what he has done? Like he has created an absolute fine squad, I suppose the best available to him, and overall has done a fantastic job.
100%. I think Jimmy, I've worked with Jimmy before, and what I know of Jimmy, he won't want any credit for this. He'll want to do the best he can for the group that he has. That's what he's good at. He's good at putting backroom teams together, letting people excel within a group, and he's quite happy to step back and to let others take the limelight. Is he getting the credit for what he's doing? I think he is. I've spoken to lots of people in the last couple of weeks, and it's nothing but positive feedback or opinion on the style of play, on everything that that the footballers are presenting at the minute. So again, I think that the people that are going watching the footballers are enjoying what they're seeing. As I said, you could feel it on the pitch the other day. You could just feel the vibe off everybody, off the players, off the management, that they're enjoying it. So I think those that are close to it are very they appreciate the great job that Jimmy's doing. And I know he'll be quick to say this himself, that the backroom team that's with him are playing a huge part in that as well. So yeah, I think he's getting the credit. But as I said, the Jimmy that I know will be sitting back this week, and he'll be quite happy to let the focus maybe be on his opposition manager going into Sunday, or if it's a player or anybody else that that might be called forward for something. Jimmy won't be getting in the way of any of that. That's his style, and he's at his best when he's kind of pushing other people forward and making sure that they get the credit they deserve.
Declan, can you see any changes for Sunday? Barry Coleman is very much on the way back, I think, but not so much Cormac Wolfe. I think he's a bit to go. Tony McCarthy, maybe the injury wasn't as serious as first feared. What do you think? Will we have the same starting 15 possibly?
Yeah, I mean, Tony went off very early. He was gone in the first 5 minutes. I would say.
First 6 minutes. Yeah.
It was the first play. It was the first play he got injured, and by the time the ball was out of play, he was on the pitch, literally on the pitch for 90 seconds. Yeah.
On the pitch, yeah. But he was warming up for a long time. It looked like he was coming back on, so I wasn't sure. Was it a blood sub, or we know it wasn't fully a blood sub, but he was warming up for a long time. So I don't know at what point the substitution became official. I would hope, nothing against Ty, because he did very well when he came in. But if Tony's injury isn't serious, I would imagine Tony will come back in and maybe start again from the off. That's provided that he's okay. I couldn't see any major changes outside of that, Matt. Barry Coleman.
Is a fit Barry Coleman a must?
Barry Coleman has shown to me over the last couple of seasons that he's absolutely in the frame for Limerick. But Barry Coleman hasn't played for a while, Matt. So do you jump from
the lack of sharpness, isn't it?
Last Sunday to into the first 15? If I was to hazard a guess, I would imagine Barry Coleman, if he hits his markers this week, Barry Coleman will make the bench this weekend. That's what I would be thinking myself. As you alluded to, there's a few guys there that I don't think are going to make the cut this weekend. Maybe the final, if we were to just for a second, really look ahead and kind of predict that we'd be there, we might have one or two more back in 3 weeks time, actually, I believe. Not even 2 weeks, but 3 weeks to the final.
3 weeks.
So I would say if Tony's available, I would imagine he'd retain his starting position. And if Barry Coleman hits his markers this week, I'd be hopeful he'd make the bench. But for me, if I couldn't see a whole pile of change other than that. And look, when you score 421, how do you make changes really when you look at it?
Yeah. Speaking of changes, Declan, there was a change I think issued today by the GAA around this 50-meter advancement from the kickouts, and hopefully people are still listening now, they're not turning off. But there was this situation that has kind of become a little bit farcical, especially highlighted in the TV games, where midfielder would make a great field from a kickout, he'd turn it straight into his opposition player who was challenging for the ball, or challenging for the high ball, we'll say, and he'd win a 50-meter free. And obviously then teams that had good free takers were kicking 2-pointers from there, or indeed one, and it kind of become a bit of a farce. But that's been changed now. It probably hasn't impacted Limerick from what I've seen, but probably a welcome enough change, I'd say, for all involved. There is a possibility the ball can still be brought forward 50 meters, but the threshold is a little bit lower now, I think.
Yeah, I'm conscious you're running out of time, Tom. So I suppose what I would say about that is, look, in summary, the new rules have given the game of football a lease of life this year that I don't even know if the FRC would have predicted that it would go to these heights this quickly. Now, they're a bunch of very smart, experienced football men, so maybe they knew what was coming, but I certainly didn't envisage this as quick as we've seen it. The football championship, both across the league, even if you look at the provincials this year, you had Louth winning a provincial title, which gave Leinster an unbelievable shot in the arm. The All-Ireland Championship so far last weekend was an incredible weekend of football, and you throw in the Tailteann quarterfinals as well. It has just been off the charts, and we're only going into a preliminary quarterfinal weekend in football this weekend in the All-Ireland Championship, and obviously the semi-finals in the Tailteann Cup. But there's so much football left to play that this football championship could just keep continuing to heights that we haven't seen in a long time. But within that, there's been a couple of just almost silly rules that just needed to be fixed. And the one you mentioned, where Josh Ryan can kick out a football and Tommy Childs can catch it in the middle of the field, and Tommy could purposely almost run into his opponent, and before we know it, the referee's running 50 yards, giving James Naughton a free on the 13-yard, where James decides, actually, do you know what, I'll actually come back here and I'll take 2 points. And for me, it was a small bit farcical. It kind of went a bit too far, and I think that's the change, that now if you're fouled, it's a free from where it lands, and if your opponent continues not to get out of the way, well then I think you can. Yeah. I think that's be brought forward.
Exactly. I think that's the happy medium, because
I think it's right that it should be changed, even though I have criticism of it changing in mid-season. But it's fine if hands up. It's not working, and let's have the courage to go and rectify it. I think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. It's too drastic. Like you literally, from the time you win that kick out, the smart footballer is going to engage his man, and the ref then is being taught, okay, if he doesn't get out the way, we're going to bring this forward. So it was just too much. It was just too much, and I think common sense has prevailed. I know what you're on about, Matt. I've seen Kieran McGeeney and one or two guys kind of having a go. I think sometimes with these managers, you wonder, are they having a go at the rule, or are they having a go at the organisation, or what angle are they coming from? But I think Kieran was kind of saying that, certain people seem to have a direct line to the FRC. Look, I don't know if they do or not, but I think that rule needed to be changed, and I'm glad it was. It's changed at the right time, because there's a fear out there that, one of these big decisions, the closer we get to, the end of this championship, could have a huge effect on a game. So for me, anyway, I'm in favour of the change, and I think it will help it. It will help a game that is thriving currently. It'll help it even more.
Yeah, and I
agree totally with you, Declan.
I think it was a Derek O'Mahony, the referee. I think he pulled it 13 times in one game, so that was probably a bit farcical. And it doesn't really add to the game when the ball is brought forward 50 meters. While I think it is necessary, and I having refed, I think 2 adult board games myself. When someone's been cynical, it's no harm to punish them, because that was a real blight on the game, and players throwing the ball away and slapping it away. But that one wasn't really a problem. Lads are fairly challenging for the ball and getting punished for it if they come out second best for a high ball. That was the issue there. But look, the FRC, I think you're right. The timing is right. We're at exactly, every team now has a kind of an equal enough run at it, and it's not in the middle of a group or anything like that. So it's kind of it's almost like a new championship at senior level, and we're down to the last 4 in the Tailteann Cup. So look, I think it's okay.
Common sense.
Yeah, common sense, exactly. Yeah, Declan. So we're hoping for a big green army heading up to Croke Park on Sunday. Obviously Saturday as well, but particularly on Sunday. Do you see us getting over the line? Not to put you on the spot, but do you think we've enough? We've seen enough from this Limerick team to say that they should just about get over what will be a testing enough Wicklow challenge.
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, I've seen enough myself this year watching Limerick to know that the graph is going in the right direction. And I have no fear that Limerick will, with what's gone before us, that they will perform this weekend, and I believe there's a result in them. That's just my opinion. From a Limerick perspective, they, as I said earlier, they have a job to do. They have their own kind of markers or milestones to hit this week to get themselves in the right frame of mind, to get to the pitch of the game early days on Sunday. But I think once they get into flow, I think the pitch will suit them. The style of play that they've kind of come up with or agreed on will suit Croke Park. And absolutely, I'm very hopeful. You're always nervous, that everything goes according to plan. But sometimes the great thing about players is that once they get on the pitch, all the nerves are left behind, and they just express themselves. So if Limerick can express themselves in the manner that they've been kind of doing so over the last couple of weeks, then I'm very confident that we'll be smiling from ear to ear on Sunday evening after a good weekend for Limerick hurlers and footballers.
Absolutely. Okay.
I
we'll
agree
leave
with
it there.
that,
So I think, yeah. Hopefully we'll be booking a hotel for 3 weeks' time. We'll wait till after they play Wicklow to decide if we do that. We won't jump the gun, but hopefully
it's going to be a costly few weeks ahead. If I was working it out during the week that if Limerick were to get to both our Ireland finals, we'll be in Croke Park 5 times starting this Saturday. So it's going to be a busy few weeks, and it's going to be an expensive few weeks. But it's the height of the summer, and sure we're ready to be.
Yeah, and I think Limerick went between hurling and football once in 5 years, between 2013 and 2017 seasons in one trip. And now we're doing 2 in 24 hours and potentially a handful in the space of months. But it's a great problem to have. Declan, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for joining us again on Treaty Talk. And hopefully we'll be, as you said, smiling ear to ear in the Drumcondra area on Sunday evening. So we'll be chatting to you soon, Declan, all right?
Thanks a million.
Thanks. And thank you both. We'll see you in Croke Park. Thanks a million.
Yeah. Okay, so long before Declan. Yeah, thanks indeed to Declan Brouder for joining us. Yeah, Matt, great insight.
We got a great insight there from the two lads, who know their stuff. It was fantastic, and good discussion, and balanced discussion facing into the two matches. Like Limerick will be probably favourites for both games, but you can take nothing for granted, Tom. It's knockout. It's that stage of the competition, and we'll tread carefully.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's very exciting to watch the Limerick footballers, and I'm not trying to trying to blow smoke that isn't there. Like you watched the match last weekend, the same as I did. Like, and you know, we went. I remember covering games with you, Matt, in McNeville Park, 2019, 2020, and while Limerick had good teams and good players, at times it was very difficult to watch. And that's nothing against how they set up; it was the rules and stuff like that. But there's a great energy about this team now, and it's very enjoyable to watch.
I think an awful lot of it is, Tom, that it's to a certain degree, a lot of it is unexpected. So therefore, tis novel. But like the type of football they're playing is very, very, very easy on the eye. Yeah. And like, you know, you mentioned players there, like, and we've some excellent players that are as good as in any county.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's no doubt about it.
James Norton must be the leading scorer in the country.
I wish I'd have totted up, because I'd love to confirm that. I'd say he is in the Tailteann Cup alone. He's 20 odd points. You know, I think in the league, sure, he, as we know, he got 4-12 in one game. But every day he's gone out, he's kicking new scores, and he's scoring from play now as well, which, you know, wasn't always the case maybe with James, and he's in a rich reign of form from frees from play. But he's also involved in the play a lot more, I think, this year as well. And if you know, when a player of his quality gets the space that the new rules have afforded, you can see what he's capable of.
That's the thing. Like the new rules, you know, have
freed up these guys to
try. Huge contribution to players like him getting the opportunity to express themselves.
Yeah,
and it will tell you how outdated and farcical the old rules were.
No,
you know, and I'm a bit slow to change, Tom. And I said, you know, when we spoke about this at the beginning of the year, the jury would be out, and I was of the opinion like that the new rules should have been brought in over a longer period of maybe possibly 2 years, 2 tranches in different years. But you know, reflecting back, and I say, mea culpa, I was wrong. You know, go full
kind of
blooded
just
into it was the right decision.
Yeah, I have the current rule book, Matt, right as it is right here. They've more or less ripped it up for the football rules of it anyway.
Is that the official guide, Tom?
Official guide part 2, I think, is issued. That one is issued from the start of last year. Now, it officially hasn't been changed, as we know. They've obviously adopted all these rules, but that's the
rules of the game.
That's the playing rules in terms of the duties of the players. No, it's the rules of I wouldn't be reading that now, Matt, but the rules of the game, as it is, you know, what defines a foul and what defines.
Because I'd love to see the chapter of the association.
Right, we won't go there. But Matt, it's 2 p.m. is the throw-in time in Croke Park on Sunday. 4 p.m. on Saturday for the hurlers, 2 p.m. on Sunday for the footballers. Obviously, Fermanagh and Kildare making up the other side of the draw, but we'll hopefully be able to start talking about them next week. But a big chance for Limerick and indeed Wicklow to make a rare national final. Just moving, I suppose, away from the 2 senior intercounty men's teams, I think we'll stay on football, and the ladies' football will come to with our other elements in terms of masters and stuff. But the Limerick ladies, Matt, last Saturday evening picked up a big important win, a big win on the scoreboard, and a big 3 points in the form of victory over I'm going to say down. It's Derry, wasn't it? In the
absolutely huge in the context of the group, because as you know, we had a big win over Kilkenny, and then we lost to Louth by 4 points. But Sligo, they beat Derry by just 7 points, but they had a bigger win than we had over Kilkenny. They out. We won 7-23. Was it to no score? Yeah. They won by 3 points more. But it has changed the dynamic now, in that Limerick are on top at the moment on plus 65. Sligo are on plus 54, and Louth are on plus 32.
Yeah. What can you tell us about?
And I was asked the question during the week, if Limerick and Sligo was a draw on Sunday, Tom,
Limerick would
go through to the semi-final if Louth beat Sligo in the final round.
Yeah, so Limerick have one game left, which is against Sligo this Sunday. And Sligo have 2 games left, Limerick this Sunday, and then in the final round, because there's an odd number of teams in the group, they travel to Louth, I believe, in the final round. So
that's right.
Yeah, a draw this weekend. Limerick, well, basically, by virtue of that large victory, Limerick's scoring difference is well placed in the event of a draw.
Or in the event of 3 teams finishing on 6 points.
Yes, where Limerick to beat Sligo and Sligo to beat Louth.
Win the match on Sunday, they are through to the semi-final.
Yeah, with 9 points from of a possible 12.
Yeah, unless Louth unless Sligo have a massive win over Louth, which is
and Louth also have a massive win over Kilkenny, like a huge win.
No, but Louth have played Kilkenny and didn't have a massive win over them.
Have they played Derry?
They're playing Derry this weekend.
That's it. Yeah. They'd improved their total there. But look, we're getting into the nitty gritty of the table. The scenario for Limerick is simple.
No. What we need to talk about now is the way we bounce back from the Louth defeat, which still rankles, mind you.
Yes.
And the manner in which it was the destruction of Derry. You know, it was an absolute trouncing, 8-12 to 1-8. You know, and when you factor in that after 15 minutes after, very early in the game anyway, Derry led 1-3 to no score.
Right. Well, I wasn't at the game. I wasn't actually aware that was the way of the scoring again. Wow, that's some starts.
At that stage, you would be having all sorts of doubts about Limerick going anywhere, you know. But to come back and score 8 goals and 12 points, they really had the game put to bed by half time, you know, when they had 5-5 up on the board. So, like, it was 5-5 to 1-3, I think, at halftime, or something, maybe 5-5 to 1-4. But look, Limerick ticked an awful lot of boxes. The forwards were very good. A lot of concentration was put in the last week in what left them down and what left them in the position that they are in now. The execution and the efficiency in front of goal. Like when we had 15 wides against Louth to Louth's 4, you know, and that could still cost us. But I think, given the type of performance that was against Derry, albeit now Derry are a struggling side, but they had picked up in the Ulster Championship. Now they only picked up 1 win in the league. Derry, they had picked up in the Ulster Championship, and they were narrowly beaten by Antrim in the Ulster final, and then put up a very plucky performance against Sligo. Now Sligo were in Division 4, we were in Division 3. Sligo failed to get out of Division 4. They missed promotion. They were third, a point behind second place. And Fermanagh, was it?
Jesus, off the top of my head. Antrim and Fermanagh, I think, was the final, no?
Yeah, at the top of my head now I miss it, but that's where they were. So, like, it's Division 3 against Division 2, Division 3 against Division 4. Now Sligo are going to be a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, sorry, it was Antrim and Fermanagh. Antrim won Division 4 and Fermanagh were runners up, so that was your 1-2, you know. That was your top 2, yeah. But the game is on in Sligo, as we said there. It's in Clonakul, I'd say, Community Park in Sligo. Yeah. With 1 p.m.
And it's on now it's on at 1 p.m. It has been brought forward from 2 p.m.
Yeah. So 1 p.m. start. Obviously, we can't be everywhere, but you know, I believe the game is being streamed as well. I think I did see a reference to that somewhere. I must double check that. But you know, it could be people in Croke Park might be flicking onto their phones to see how it's going. But look, it's kind of clashing with the men's football. But look, wouldn't it be great?
Well, it'll be into the second half before the men's football gets underway.
Yeah. But we quietly fancy our chances here, Matt. Do we? I know it's definitely a step up from Derry. It's definitely a step up from Derry.
If we see the best of Limerick, I'd be pretty confident. Like, we lost to Louth, fierce disappointment, but there was a lot of the display against Louth you could be happy about. It was when it came to the final third, the decision making and the execution was poor, Tom. You know, and plus we conceded 2 soft goals. But overall, in general, there was an awful lot of the performance that was very, very, very good. And like, if you rectify those two little issues, I shouldn't be saying little issues, but obviously when it came to efficiency in front of goals, that was rectified for the Derry game. But it needs to continue to be rectified going to Sligo. It's going to be a very, very tight game, Tom. The last time we met him at Newcastle West, we beat him in the championship 2 years ago.
Yeah, was that the semi-final or last group game?
No. It was a group game, Tom.
Last group game, that's right. Yeah, I think I was at it. Yeah,
because we had home games. We had home games with Sligo and Down, and we beat Sligo and we beat Down, but we still got to the semi-final. But
yes.
I think it was Kilkenny we had in the first round.
That was right. Yeah, I was into playing
Kilkenny.
We
don't ever seem to get away from Kilkenny, but yeah, I'd be pretty confident going up there, Tom. I'd be pretty confident going up there. If, as I say, things have to fall into place. We have to bring our A game there, and I think if we do, we will be in the semi-final Sunday evening.
Yeah, and the scoring boots, which weren't there against Louth, brought back the last day, and hopefully they remain very much in place for that trip to Sligo. But definitely a step up in class from the victories over.
If we get to the semi-final, it is likely to be Antrim.
Well, we will cross that bridge when
we'll cross that bridge when it comes.
Absolutely. So wishing the lads and the ladies all the best at 1 p.m. in Sligo on Sunday afternoon, and the victory, as Matt says, would go a long way to putting Limerick back into another semi-final and continue to knock on the door of this junior championship. Matt, moving to Camogie, I will come back to the odds and ends and clubs and stuff like that, but I think Camogie deserves its place this week. Last round of the Camogie Championship for Limerick. I know it's another group of 5, Limerick in both codes, actually both female codes, ending a week earlier than everyone else, so they'd want to have their business done. They drew the last day with Clare, that added to the earlier victory in the group phase. So a result here we think will put Limerick very much through, but I suppose we're definitely underdogs hosting Tipperary on Saturday afternoon.
We're very, very much underdogs. We look back on last year's clash between the counties in McNeville Park. We look back to the Munster quarterfinal in Thurles, and all the pointers are towards Tipperary. But Tom, this Limerick team, and I've seen them 4 or 5 times this year, and I can't help but notice, and you're probably the same, that they're showing measurable improvement game on game. Through the league.
There's a fair amount of resilience in the team as well, I think.
The Munster Championship game, Tom, was not a bad performance by Limerick.
Yeah.
Like, we were goal down within 20 seconds.
Yeah. They had 4 goals conceded in the first half, and they kind of shored it up a little bit in the second half, I thought. And, picked off some nice scores. But the thing is, if you want to stay in the contest here, I suppose, look, let's be honest, we think Tipperary will probably take the victory. I think
we think they will, but at the start of the campaign, and Joe Quaid is on record as saying it after the Clare match, you were there with me, Tom. We're in the championship in the last round going into the Tipperary game, and he would have taken it. But for viewers and listeners, the situation is that we are level with Clare on points, with an inferior scoring difference, and that the inferior scoring difference is due in the main to the heavy defeat by Cork in the first round. Now, we have Tipperary left. We've 1 game left, Tipperary. Clare have 2 games, away to Cork and away to Tipperary. And for us to qualify, were we not to beat Tipperary, Clare will have to be beaten by heavy scores, and very heavy scores, by both Cork and Tipp.
But Matt, you because of the difference between the sides in this group, like from top to all the way through to Wexford at bottom, you just couldn't rule out Wexford or Clare losing their 2 games heavily. It is quite feasible that they will be beaten heavily by Cork this weekend. Yeah. And then when they play Tipperary in the last round, that they could be beaten again.
We also have to factor in that if we lose to Tipperary, that
our situation is worsened. Yeah,
will deteriorate.
Yes.
So it's one of those tricky ones. But the best way from a Limerick point of view is avoid defeat.
Yeah,
And
a draw even as much as that.
that'll really put it up to Clare. And were we to get a draw out of it, even preferably a win, and that's what Joe Quaid will be saying to the girls, come on, give it a right lash and see where it takes us.
Yeah. But I think people will know, even if Limerick are 5 points down with 10 minutes to go or whatever, that every score could be crucial, even if you could just chip back into it potentially in the scenario we just outlined, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Limerick and it's Limerick's final outing of the year on paper. So why not leave it all out there for the 60 odd minutes, you know?
Look, Tom, nobody could argue about the commitment. What they delivered in Clare, you know, was just simply off the charts. Like the effort they delivered was just simply incredible now. Defensively and up front, like, you know, it was just like this team is evolving, Tom. Like Joe Quaid started the year minus 14 players from last year's squad. Like, and then I think very few can argue that he's done a very good job in rebuilding the squad and rebuilding the team.
Yeah.
Like, because at the outset of the championship, there were serious fears that Limerick could possibly be relegated or could possibly be involved in the relegation final.
They took care of that the first day out, really, didn't they? With the win over Wexford.
Those fears were dispelled with the win over Wexford. And like you suffer a defeat to Cork by what was it, 38 points, and you come back the following week and you win the Camogie match. That to me, Tom, is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you hear me at the start there? I used the word resilience, and I think that's the sure sign of it, because many more would have flight or fight, and they certainly did fight. So, look, let's see. It's fixed for Cappamore. As I think we were guessing, maybe last year Cappamore could be a suitable venue, and
it's at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock on Saturday. Yeah. So people not going to Dublin can tip away out, and they'll still be back home in time to
including myself.
Yeah, they'll be back home in time to put the feet up and have a glance at the TV. So there's no excuse really for anyone staying around Limerick for this one. But a big chance for Limerick to, I suppose, end their season on a high. Tipperary, you know, beaten by Cork already, they'll probably be looking to come back with a point to prove. But you just don't know the psyche of teams after losing games and what has changed in their group, you know. So let's
Tipperary, with all the progress that they have made in the last couple of years, Tom, they suffered a very heavy defeat to Cork in the Rag, but they bounced back. They went to Wexford Park and they put seven goals and 18 points on Wexford. 7-18 to 7 points, I think, was the final score.
Let's hope they don't do any of that the weekend. But
no. But it means like that whatever little, you know, but like the Tipperary team that won the league last year, that's not the Tipperary team we're going to be playing this year, Tom.
Very much, isn't it? Yeah.
Like they beat us in the Munster Championship, and they lost to Waterford in the semi-final. So for the heavy defeat to Cork, they were the type of games that Tipperary were winning. You know,
they were very competitive in 12 months ago.
Yeah, they beat Cork in the league, and you know it's look, they have rediscovered their mojo, possibly, I'd say. But let's hope, as I said, Limerick go out, give it their best shot, see where it takes them.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1 p.m. in Cappamore this Saturday, the Limerick Camogie side finishing out their group campaign, and hopefully then we'll have a possibility of looking forward to knock out Camogie in Croke Park as well. I think it would be.
It would be a quarterfinal in Croke Park were we to beat Tipperary.
Yeah.
Provided Cork and Tipperary beat Clare.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see how it unfolds. Okay, Matt, just moving to some other, I suppose, odds and ends and different bits and pieces. I say odds and ends like it's of a small matter, but a Munster title has arrived in Limerick, has stayed in Limerick. Colin Ryan has won the Munster Puck Fada last weekend. I think I was chatting to him. It was a tight enough margin, 20 metres, which I believe is tight enough, which is basically a half a puck of a ball, really, in these lads, or even less. But Colin, is it 3 in a row, Matt, is it?
It's 3 in a row. I had the pleasure of meeting him on Saturday evening and chatting with him. And actually, we didn't chat about how much he had won. We were kind of talking about the 3 in a row, and he had his little son Fionn with him, and he was absolutely delighted. to make it 3 in a row, and really looking forward to the All Ireland final. It's on the bank holiday Monday in over the Cooley Mountains, so he's really geared up for it, and like he's won the All Ireland already. He's been second a couple of times, so I'm beginning to think that this might be Cullen's turn this year. So. And we wish him the best of luck. We congratulate Cullen, and let's hope it goes for him in the final.
Yeah, and it was hosted by Gary Spillane. I think it was this side of the mountain. Was it this year? I think they were
the Gary Spillane club. They're to be congratulated on running it and bringing it over to this side of the county. We don't get much of a look in over here, Tom, as you have probably discovered since you moved to the Great South, But anything we get, we're appreciative of it. But it was held over the Galtee Mountains and very efficiently run by the Gary Spillane Club. In keeping with everything they do, they do things right in the bouncers,
That's it indeed, yeah. And maybe a game of bounce, the old game afterwards in the pub or two. Okay.
But seriously, typical of the man, Cullen, like him, he was out supporting his club Palace Green on Saturday evening, a couple of hours after winning it, and that's where I met him and was chatting with him,
And that's where I was going to go to next, Matt. The leagues in Limerick in hurling concluded at the weekend.
They did, and they concluded on a high note for the Staker Wallace. They were involved it was the first county title for the Staker Wallace since 1990 in any level. I
didn't realise that. 1990, so
1990.
I don't remember it, Matt. I don't remember. What did they win in 1990? Tell me.
They won the County Junior B. Mike Ryan was manager. They beat Doon in the final, and they previously had won an under-21 county championship and junior championship, but they haven't won anything in 35 years, and they've been close a couple of times. But it was a great final in so far as that went to extra time, and. Like the Stakers led by 8 points, 4 minutes into extra time. And they were really hanging on at the end. And were it not for a disallowed goal right at the death, it would have gone to penalties.
Wow.
So, the excitement in Kilmallock, and there was a good crowd there now. The excitement was palpable. It was it was most enjoyable for somebody to sit back and watch it, and maybe not for the protagonists or the supporters of the protagonists, but it's great to see a club come up and get a win. Now, last night in the Junior A Hurling Championship, Doon defeated Patrickswell.
Yeah, so just the second
great.
team there.
Patrickswell were the holders, Tom. They won it last year. So they were looking for 2 in a row. But there's great credit due to these two clubs, Tom, because this is their second strings. Where are all the first strings gone?
This grade is Junior A, is it?
Junior A.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, I do know some of the Junior A championship teams would have lined out in intermediate grades in the league.
There was a bit of that.
There was a bit of that.
To be fair, there was a bit of that, but. Full credit to Doon and the Well for getting to the final and contesting by all accounts a very good final. It was 121 to 214, Tom, so the final score would suggest that it was an exciting game.
And it was Doon prevailing on this occasion, and I'm sure that with the rivalry there at senior level as well, no harm to have an early little marker against the Well from Doon's point of view, but. Look, that's it. That's the league's complete. Just Matt, to touch briefly, I know people texting me and texting you and probably ringing you. With the success of Limerick in the Tailteann Cup, the football championship round 1 has been, I suppose, delayed, postponed, whatever word you want. It's been pushed back, and if Limerick win again at the weekend, probably have another kind of kickback, and where it'll fit in, I don't know, but. It is a little bit messy, Matt. I think that's fair to say for everyone involved. People would have been making plans for rounds 1 and 2.
It is. But this is some of the unintended consequences of success, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah.
Having said that, I think there's very few would swap it.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm not saying clubs are up in arms or anything like that. But
I haven't had any clubs up in arms. I think the football clubs in the main are in total, I'd say, are behind what's happening with the senior football team, because most of the clubs have personnel involved.
Yeah,
and apart from that, I think that an awful lot of the football clubs, Tom, are taking great pride in what's happening with the county football team. Make no mistake about it. And they're not going to do more about the competition being put back. Now, my understanding is, if, God forbid, Limerick are beaten by Wicklow, that the football championship will come into play the weekend after next. 28th.
Yeah, basically next day, which is 28, is it? That's what do we know? Yeah, 20, even from the 26th, Thursday the 26th onwards, really, wouldn't it be?
Up to
onwards,
the 29th.
for the Look, it's
over 3 days, but that's my understanding. Now I may be subject to correction on that,
Yeah, the trouble I see down the line if Limerick do win, and it's great. I'd love if Limerick win a Tailteann Cup final, and this is someone who, I'd made a few plans for my rounds 1 and 2 that were put in for my own junior B football. But if Limerick are in that, then you could see that certainly the higher grades of the football championship's not starting until basically the weekend of the All-Ireland Hurling final, I think the 19th of July thereabouts. You could end up with some dual clubs facing the possibility of 10 straight weeks in a row, I would say.
Oh yeah, definitely, Tom. But clubs will accept that if we have success at county level. If we have the Tailteann Cup and the Limerick County Cup up in the sideboard.
I'm not saying clubs are going to give out about that. I just do wonder. We kick the can down the road. You have
a die-hard people that say, "Oh, look, we have a split season. The clubs are not being treated fairly, and that's fine,"
Yeah.
But we're in an unprecedented situation, Tom, where we're going into July with the possibility of a Limerick football team being involved in a national final in mid-July.
Yeah.
Not to be sniffed at.
No, that's for sure. And look, let's see what comes of it at the weekend, and then we'll know an awful lot more about how the fixtures fall. But look, I'm sure the county board are making plans in the background to.
Absolutely, Limerick County Board, they've never failed to make the deadlines for the Munster Championship. Other counties have now, Tom.
Yeah. I can tell you though, I can see it already. I know there'll be a few fellas I know that play both codes that'll be looking at this 10 games in about 10 weeks. Their bodies will be creaking.
I get that point, and they don't play county, I get that point. And look, the county is going to be littered with them, Tom, because how many dual clubs have we? We've Kildima Palestine, we've Mungret St. Paul's, we've Napier, we've Adair, all dual clubs.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see how it comes. Matt, the Masters dual action at the weekend, and a win for one in Waterford and a loss for the other in Wexford. So tell us about it.
A badly needed win, Tom. As you know, it was our third game in a row away, and we had lost to Kerry in Brosnan. We'd lost to Clare. Was it in
Miltown
Malbay, and we went to Waterford and picked up a very, very important win. 3 goals and 7 points to 1 goal and 7 points. It was 6 points to Waterford, 1-3 to Limerick at half-time. Dan Kavanagh had got the Limerick goal. Limerick got 2 goals by Keith Hartnett in the second half, and
no stranger to a goal or two down the years in different goals.
Well, somebody have an awful lot of respect for he's a die-hard Everton fan like myself. But Keith found the net twice, and he one was from a penalty. But it was very, very important, Tom, in the context of progression in the Masters, that Limerick got a win, because down 3 losses and you were going to be in trouble. No, the next game is at home. It's at home in Hospital, St. John's Park in Hospital, on Saturday week. I think it's 2:00. Don't take me on that now. I'll have definite news on it next week. But they're playing Longford Leitrim. Right. Longford Leitrim the counties have combined to field the team in this competition over the years.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it'll be a first meeting with Longford Leitrim, and obviously how Longford Leitrim are going in the competition at the moment, I simply don't know at the moment, Tom. But I will certainly know for next week's podcast.
More on that and on. Yeah. And
The
the hurlers
went to Wexford, and unfortunately were beaten 19 to 12 points. But they were coming off the back of a good win over Cork in the first round. Now, if you recall last year in the Hurling Masters, Limerick went to Kildare and were beaten by Kildare. And but this time Wexford had gone to Kildare in the first round and had a huge win over it. So Wexford were one of the strong teams in the competition last year, Tom.
Right.
And very, very interestingly, Cork and Galway have met, and it has ended in a draw. So it would look like that there's a nest of counties there. There's only 6 counties in it altogether. It would look as if it's going to be very, very close. Now, Tipperary are a mile ahead of everybody. They're the champions, and they are extreme. I'm told that they're stronger this year.
It's a long way to Tipperary, is what you're saying.
A long way to Tipperary. And Wexford would probably be second in the pecking order. But then you have Cork, Limerick, Galway, and Kildare, and there's nothing between them.
Right. Do we know the format? Is it the top 3, top 2, top 4? What is it?
Top 2 go to the final. Top 2, 3 and 4 go to Shield final. Okay,
right. So they might find themselves in one of those, depending on how they get on in the latter rounds. Yeah. So.
And to mark progress,
Okay. Yeah. Right, so Matt, we've 100 minutes or so of action discussed and debated and whatever else. Anything else on your wily old agenda there, or have we covered it all? We have.
I'm running out of ideas.
Well, all we can do, I suppose, at this juncture is wish the 4 teams the best of luck at the weekend. 3 of them in 100% in knockout competition, and the other as playing their last game at the group stages as well. So, I say 2 officially in knockout and 2 in their last round, I should say, of group. But they know what's on the line for both the ladies' sides as well. So, whether you're in Sligo or in Dublin again, or in Cappamore, I suppose we're wishing all 4 teams the best of luck, and hopefully we'll be celebrating some more success next week on Treaty Talk. And I'm sure you'll echo those, Matt.
Tom, in my last word on it, wouldn't 4 wins be beautiful?
Oh, it would be magic.
What would Donald Trump call his bill? Big beautiful, wouldn't it?
I don't know. It could be the green takeover. We could be asking us to split Limerick in 2 or whatever after that. But let's see. And anyone that does see me knocking around Croke Park the weekend, don't be afraid to say hello. If you've been tuning into the podcast, we always do love to hear people. And Matt, as you just a small anecdote. Remember, we met someone in Thurles who was listening in. I forget his name. I think he's from the Glens of Antrim. I think he had been.
Yeah,
been down.
Yeah, he recognised us, which was nice,
Yeah, great to hear that. And we've heard plenty of people from Limerick, from all corners of Limerick, and from people abroad who are Limerick adjacent, as it were, tuning in. So we do love the feedback, and don't forget to say hello if you do see us anywhere. We don't bite. Well, I don't anymore. Matt might, but I don't. But
and
anyway.
If you don't like us, tell us.
Yeah, we won't listen, but you can tell us. Yeah,
we'll ignore it, but tell us anyway.
Right. Okay, that's it for Treaty Talk. Thanks, Matt, and thanks to the lads. We'll talk to you again soon.